Do not fear what tomorrow may bring. Do not tremble at the challenges you see looming over your life. For I tell you today, God is already working in ways that you cannot even imagine. There are mountains in your path, walls that seem insurmountable, rivers that feel impossible to cross, but God is not limited by your understanding, by your circumstances, by the voices that say it cannot be done. God specializes in the impossible. Listen closely, for what you see as hopeless is merely a canvas upon which God is painting His masterpiece. The problems that press you down, the failures that haunt your thoughts, the delays that steal your peace, God has already turned them into stepping stones for your victory. So why should you worry? Why should fear steal the life that God has promised you? Lift your eyes and see that He is not idle. He is moving even when you cannot sense it. He is speaking even when the world is silent. He is providing even when your resources are gone. He is doing the impossible for you. Do not let your mind be troubled by impossibilities. For God's power does not bend to the laws of man or the limits of human understanding. What you call a failure, God calls preparation. What you call delay, God calls perfect timing. What you call lack, God calls abundance waiting to flow. There is nothing too difficult for God. When you look at your life and say, I cannot, God says, I will. When you look at the future and see only darkness, God says, I am the light that will shine through. The God who made the heavens and the earth is the same God who is arranging every detail of your life. There is no situation too complex, no relationship too broken, no opportunity too far gone. If God is for you, who can be against you? Do you hear me? You must hear this truth deep within your spirit. Worry is a thief. It steals your joy. It paralyzes your faith. It keeps your hands from receiving the miracles God has already prepared for you. When fear rises, respond with faith. When doubt whispers, answer with conviction. God's power is not dependent on your abilities. It is dependent on His promise. And His promises never fail. When the world says it is impossible, when circumstances shout that it cannot happen, remember this: God is not bound by the laws of this world. He turns the impossible into testimony. He transforms the weak into the mighty. He lifts the fallen and makes them stand taller than ever before. Think about the times in your life when you were at the edge of despair, when every door seemed closed. Did God not intervene? Did He not show up in ways that made your heart tremble with gratitude? That same God who delivered then is still at work now. He's not a God of yesterday only. He's the God of today, of tomorrow, and of the eternities. Your past victories are proof, your present battles are evidence, and your future triumphs are guaranteed because God is faithful. Do not allow the enemy of your mind, the liar, who whispers, "It is over," to steal the hope that God has planted in your soul. You may be facing financial struggles and the bills pile high like mountains. You may be facing health crises that doctors cannot explain. You may be facing relationships that feel irreparable, careers that seem stalled, dreams that are deferred. But God is bigger than every difficulty. The same God who brings rain to the parched earth will bring solutions to your problems. The same God who commands the stars will arrange the circumstances of your life. The same God who parts seas and moves mountains will open the paths that seem impossible to cross. God specializes in miracles, and miracles are what you need today. Do not waste time worrying. Worry is a sign that you have forgotten who God is. Worry says, I cannot handle this, while faith says, God will handle this. The moment you turn worry into prayer, the impossible begins to shift. When you release your anxieties into God's hands, you invite His power to work in ways that no human could ever orchestrate. Every limitation you see is only temporary. Every problem you face is only an opportunity for God to reveal His greatness. So speak with boldness. Declare with confidence. God will do the impossible for me. Say it until your spirit believes it. Speak it until your life reflects it. Live it until the world sees it. There is a force at work in your life that is unseen but unstoppable. It is God's hand moving in your favor. It is God's Spirit orchestrating every detail of your circumstances. It is God's wisdom guiding your decisions. You may not see it with your eyes, but your faith must see it. Faith is not the absence of difficulty. Faith is the assurance that God is bigger than the difficulty. Faith is not blind hope. Faith is the confident expectation that what God has promised will manifest. Do not be afraid to step forward even when the path seems unclear, because the God who calls you forward will light every step. Understand this: worry does not change your circumstances, but it changes your heart. Worry breeds doubt, fear, and impatience. Worry weakens your prayer. Worry clouds your vision. But when you surrender your worries to God, you position yourself for His intervention. You make a space for the impossible. You make room for miracles. You make your life a canvas for God's glory. When you let go of anxiety and hold on to God, doors open that you never even knew existed. Walls fall that you thought would stand forever. Rivers part that you thought could not be crossed. The impossible becomes inevitable when God is at work. Remember, God's timing is perfect. The delays you see are not denials. The struggles you endure are not punishments. The obstacles you face are not the end of your story. They are the prelude to your breakthrough. God knows the exact moment to act. God knows the exact way to move. God knows the exact provision to release. And when He acts, it is beyond anything you could ever plan, imagine, or demand. That is why you do not worry. That is why you do not fear. That is why you trust in Him with all your heart, all your mind, and all your spirit, even when the situation looks hopeless, even when people have given up, even when the world says it is impossible. God says it is possible. And not only possible, but it will happen. The impossible is already being arranged in the heavens on your behalf. The plans of God are not limited by human understanding. They are not confined by logic, timing, or circumstance. They are boundless, unstoppable, and perfect. What you see as failure, God sees as preparation. What you see as a closed door, God sees as a secret path. What you see as a limitation, God sees as a stage for glory. Do you believe this? Do you truly believe this? Not with words only, but with your life. For faith is not measured by what you say, it is measured by what you live. When you trust God with your circumstances, when you surrender your plans to His wisdom, when you let go of worry and cling to His power, the impossible begins to bow. Mountains move, rivers split, storms cease, hearts change, doors open. What was lost is restored. What was broken is healed. What was hopeless is made triumphant. Your past cannot define your future. Your mistakes cannot limit your destiny. Your fears cannot dictate the path that God has already paved. God has already seen the end from the beginning. God has already written the story of your breakthrough. God has already set the blessings, miracles, and favor that will overflow in your life. You are standing at the edge of impossibility, but God is standing with you. He has never failed. He will never fail, and He cannot fail. So why should you worry? Why should doubt linger? Why should fear whisper lies? God is doing the impossible for you, and it is already underway. Do not underestimate the power that is working on your behalf even now. While you worry, while your mind races with fears of failure, while you replay the impossibilities over and over, God is moving. He is arranging the pieces in your life with a divine precision. He is preparing your breakthrough while you are still trying to figure out the problem. He is orchestrating your blessing while your heart trembles in uncertainty. The problem is not that God is slow. The problem is that you have not yet aligned your heart fully to see His plan. You must believe with the unwavering certainty that what God has promised will come to pass, no matter how impossible it may appear to the human eye. God does not move according to human timelines. He moves according to perfect wisdom, according to divine strategy, according to purposes far greater than you can comprehend. Every obstacle, every challenge, every delay you face is a test of your faith. God does not ask for blind obedience. He asks for unwavering trust. He asks that you lift your eyes above the circumstances, above the fear, above the impossibility, and fix your gaze on Him. For when your eyes are on God, the mountains shrink, the storms calm, the impossibilities vanish. Do not allow your heart to be shaken by what you see. That which appears unchangeable to you is already moving under God's command. That which seems too far out of reach is already within the scope of His power. That which you call impossible is simply an opportunity for God to demonstrate His greatness in your life. Consider this: the God who created the heavens and the earth, who set the stars in motion and caused the sun to rise and fall, is the same God who is orchestrating your life. Do you not see that if He is capable of holding the entire universe in His hand, He is more than capable of holding your problem? Do you not understand that if He can bring order from chaos in the world, He can bring solutions to your personal impossibilities? The very power that moves galaxies is the same power that moves in your favor. Nothing is too great. Nothing is too difficult. Nothing is too complex for God. And yet, too often, we allow our fear to overshadow the evidence of His faithfulness. We allow worry to dominate our hearts when God is calling us to trust. Faith is not simply believing that God exists. Faith is believing that God will act on your behalf. Faith is speaking to the impossible and declaring, I will see your power today. Faith is looking at the storm, the mountain, the closed door, and saying, God, you are bigger than this, and I will not be afraid. Your faith, no matter how small, is a seed, and when planted in the soil of trust and watered with perseverance, it grows into a force that calls forth the impossible. God rewards the faith that does not waver, that does not complain, that does not doubt. Every step you take in faith draws the power of God closer to your situation. Every prayer spoken with belief moves heaven to act. Every moment you refuse to worry opens the doors for God to intervene in ways you cannot even imagine. Do you hear the voice of God in your life? Perhaps it is not loud or dramatic, but it is steady, consistent, and powerful. God is speaking to you in moments of quiet, in whispers of hope, in sudden clarity, in unexplainable peace. That is the sound of the impossible being arranged for your life. Do not silence it with anxiety. Do not dismiss it with doubt. Do not ignore it with impatience. God's voice is calling you to trust, to surrender, to believe. He is reminding you that your inability is not the limit. Your lack of resources is not the obstacle. Your fear is not the boundary. God is the one who makes the way when there is no way. God is the one who provides when provision seems gone. God is the one who turns impossibility into testimony, despair into praise, and delay into divine timing. There are moments when life seems to move in slow motion. You have prayed, you have hoped, you have believed, and yet nothing seems to change. But let me tell you this, God's timing is perfect. The delay is not denial. The silence is not absence. The waiting is not for nothing. God is preparing something beyond what you are able to ask, think, or imagine. Your breakthrough is not late. It is being perfected. Your victory is not postponed. It is being orchestrated. Your miracle is not impossible. It is already in motion. And the key is to continue trusting, to continue believing, to continue declaring, God will do the impossible for me. Fear cannot exist in the presence of God's power. Worry cannot survive where God is active. Doubt is powerless against the certainty of His promises. That is why your heart must be anchored in Him. Anchor your mind in His wisdom. Anchor your soul in His faithfulness. Do not be swayed by circumstances, for God is working even when your eyes cannot see. Do not be moved by what the world says, for God is greater than the world. Do not be shaken by impossibility, for God's power is boundless. What appears as defeat to you is already turning into triumph by the hand of God. What appears as loss is already being restored. What appears as hopeless is already being transformed into glory. You must take action, not in fear, but in faith. Move forward with confidence, not because you know the outcome, but because you know the God who controls the outcome. Speak the words of faith. Declare the promises of God. Take steps with courage. Do not wait until the circumstances are perfect. They will never be perfect on human terms. The perfection is in God's power, not in the situation. When you act in faith, when you speak with conviction, when you trust with your whole heart, the impossible begins to bend. The storms cease, the walls fall, the rivers divide. The impossible becomes reality. God's power is not random. It is purposeful. Every challenge you face, every difficulty that arises, every struggle you endure has meaning. God is teaching you patience, developing your faith, refining your spirit, and preparing you for a testimony that will inspire generations. The impossible that God is doing in your life will not only bless you, it will serve as a beacon of hope for others. Your breakthrough will be a declaration to the world that God's power cannot be contained, that His promises never fail, that His wisdom surpasses human understanding. Your responsibility is not to figure it all out. Your responsibility is not to control every outcome. Your responsibility is to trust, to pray, to act in faith, and to maintain a heart free from worry. The impossible becomes possible when you surrender fully to God. The miracle manifests when you release anxiety and embrace faith. The breakthrough arrives when you stop fearing and start trusting. Do not be afraid of what you cannot see, for God is already orchestrating it. Do not be overwhelmed by what you cannot control, for God is already in control. Do not be anxious about what seems impossible, for God specializes in making the impossible inevitable. The moment you accept that God is doing the impossible for you, your life changes, your perspective shifts, your heart becomes light, your spirit is strengthened, your faith is elevated, worry loses its grip, fear loses its power, doubt loses its voice. You step into a life of confidence, a life of peace, a life where miracles are not extraordinary, they are expected. You begin to recognize God's hand in every detail, His voice in every direction, His power in every solution. You live not in fear, but in faith, not in limitation, but in abundance, not in impossibility, but in victory. The impossible is not a threat, it is an invitation from God to experience His greatness, to witness His power, to receive His provision, to walk in His promises. Every delay, every hardship, every challenge is not a curse, it is a setup for God to show that He is bigger than your problem, stronger than your enemy, wiser than your situation, and more faithful than your fears. There is no need to worry, no need to doubt, no need to fear. God is already doing the impossible for you. Do not allow your eyes to be fixed on what you can see, for what is visible is fleeting, limited, and often deceiving. God works in ways that are invisible to the human eye, but powerful beyond imagination. The walls that surround you, the storms that batter you, the challenges that weigh you down, these are the very arenas in which God displays His greatness. When you feel trapped, God is preparing your release. When you feel defeated, God is plotting your victory. When you feel lost, God is mapping your path to triumph. You must understand this truth. Impossibility exists only for those who see with the human eyes. For those who see with the faith, impossibility is simply a word, an opportunity for God to move, to intervene, and to demonstrate His power in ways that leave the world in awe. The world may tell you that your situation is hopeless, that the resources are too few, that the time has passed, that the odds are against you. But hear me, God's resources are limitless. God's timing is flawless. God's power is unstoppable. When the world says no, God says yes. When circumstances shout failure, God declares victory. When the impossible stands before you like a mountain, God moves it, carves a path through it, or lifts you above it. Nothing can resist His hand. Nothing can withstand His will. And nothing can outmatch His wisdom. Every trial you face is a stage set for the demonstration of God's glory. Every problem you endure is a canvas on which God paints a masterpiece of deliverance. Do you know that worry is not just a habit, but a barrier? It is a barrier that prevents the blessings of God from manifesting in your life. It is a barrier that clouds the clarity of your mind, weakens the strength of your spirit, and blinds you to the miracles unfolding around you. But when you choose faith over worry, when you choose trust over fear, the impossible begins to take shape. You are not called to understand everything. You are called to believe everything God says. You are not required to see the entire path. You are required to walk in obedience to the steps God has already revealed. Faith is the force that summons the unseen, that calls forth the impossible, and that positions you to receive the abundance God has prepared. Consider the power of God in the natural world. The sun rises at His command. The rain falls according to His will. The winds obey His decree, and the oceans respond to His voice. If God controls the universe with such precision, how much more will He orchestrate the details of your life? If He sustains galaxies, He will sustain you. If He commands the stars, He will guide your steps. If He creates life from nothing, He can create solutions from the void of impossibility. There is no limit to what God can do for you. The very laws of nature bow before His authority. The very circumstances that constrain humanity bend under His command. The impossible exists only until God acts. And when He acts, it becomes a reality beyond your imagination. Every moment of worry is a missed opportunity to witness God's intervention. Every moment of fear is a moment that could have been filled with faith. Every hesitation is a pause that delays the manifestation of the impossible. God is ready to move. God is ready to provide. God is ready to heal, restore, and elevate. But He waits for you to release the burdens that you are holding, for you to stop trying to control what only He can control, and for you to trust fully in His power. When you do, when your heart aligns with His will, miracles become inevitable. The impossible is no longer impossible. It is simply God's plan unfolding before your eyes. Do you understand the significance of this? God's plan is not random. His power is not occasional. His intervention is not conditional on human ability. The God who created the heavens and the earth, who knows every hair on your head, who sees every tear you have shed, and who understands every longing of your heart, is fully invested in your life. He is working tirelessly, not with hesitation or delay, but with precision, purpose, and unwavering commitment. The impossible that you fear is already being transformed in the secret chambers of God's wisdom. The blessing that seems out of reach is already being prepared in His storehouses of abundance. The breakthrough that you doubt is already on the verge of manifesting. For nothing is too difficult for God. Your challenges, your fears, your obstacles are not punishment. They are opportunities for God to demonstrate His faithfulness, to reveal His power, and to show that He is the source of all victory. Do not be distracted by the noise of doubt that comes from the world. Do not be persuaded by voices that tell you it cannot happen. Do not be shaken by appearances that suggest defeat. Faith sees beyond the moment. Faith sees beyond the human perspective. Faith sees God at work, moving in ways that are invisible but unstoppable. And when you step into faith, when you walk in trust, when you surrender completely, the impossible begins to bend, the mountains fall, and the chains break. Understand that God does not need your understanding to act. You may not see the path clearly. You may not understand why the storm is raging. You may not comprehend the delays, but that does not limit God's power. It amplifies it. For it is precisely in the situations that seem beyond the hope that God's glory is revealed. When humans see impossibility, God sees opportunity. When humans see failure, God sees triumph. When humans see limitation, God sees an arena for miracles. Nothing is too complicated, nothing is too far gone, and nothing is too late for God. The impossible is simply the canvas on which He displays His greatness. Do not wait for circumstance to change before you believe. Do not wait for the impossible to become possible on your own. The transformation comes when your faith aligns with God's power. When you lift your voice in prayer and surrender your heart without reservation, the unseen forces of God begin to move. The solutions appear. The doors open. The restoration comes. The blessings overflow. What was once considered beyond reach becomes not only attainable but abundant. When you trust God completely, the impossible becomes the norm. And every testimony of breakthrough becomes a living declaration of His faithfulness. Even in the darkest moments, when the shadows of doubt and fear try to claim you, God's light is present. Even when the world says you are defeated, God says you are victorious. Even when your mind cannot conceive the solution, God's wisdom has already prepared it. Your task is simple. Do not worry. Release your fears. Lift your eyes and trust. Trust not in your own strength, not in human reasoning, not in what you can see, but in the boundless power of God. Let your faith rise above the impossible and watch as God turns every challenge into a stepping stone, every obstacle into a platform, every impossibility into a testimony of His glory. Do you feel it? That stirring in your spirit? That is the presence of God reminding you that your life is under His authority, your challenges are under His control, and your impossibilities are already being rewritten. Do not let your heart be troubled by what is temporary. Do not let your mind be consumed by the impossible. Look instead to God, who is eternal, limitless, and all-powerful. Look instead to God, who can move mountains, part seas, and turn every situation around. Look instead to God, whose promises are certain, whose wisdom is perfect, and whose power is unstoppable. You are on the brink of a breakthrough that the world cannot explain, a solution that human hands cannot create, a victory that no one can orchestrate but God. So do not worry, do not fear, do not doubt. Speak the words of faith with your mouth, hold the conviction in your heart, and let your spirit rise in trust. The impossible is already being done for you. The miracles are already in motion. The doors that seem closed are opening. The provision that seems absent is arriving. The chains that seem unbreakable are falling. God is moving on your behalf in ways that exceed understanding, surpass expectation, and redefine the limits of possibility. Then let your heart hear this final truth, and let your spirit rise in full confidence. God is not limited by your circumstances. God is not constrained by human understanding. God is not delayed by what seems impossible. The impossible exists only in your perception. In reality, it is already moving in your favor. Every barrier is being removed. Every obstacle is being overcome. Every impossibility is being transformed into a testimony of God's unmatched power. Do not allow worry to steal the peace that God has prepared for you. Do not allow doubt to silence the faith that can move mountains. Do not allow fear to overshadow the certainty of God's promises. Trust in God with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, and let your soul rest in His power. Speak to the impossibilities in your life with boldness, for God has already declared victory over them. Walk forward with confidence, knowing that the storms cannot drown you, the mountains cannot stop you, and the delays cannot defeat you. For God is orchestrating your breakthrough, arranging your provision, and fulfilling every promise. Let your faith rise above the doubts of the world. Let your hope soar above the fears of your heart. Let your spirit embrace the certainty that God's power is at work on your behalf. The impossible is not a threat. It is a stage for God to reveal His glory. The challenges you face are not the end. They are the beginning of a testimony that will inspire, encourage, and proclaim the greatness of God. So do not worry. Release your fears. Surrender your anxieties. and embrace the power of God that is already moving in your life. The impossible is being done for you. The provision is already prepared. The doors are already opening. The blessings are already flowing. Stand firm, hold fast, and trust without hesitation. For God's power is unmatched. His wisdom is perfect, and His promises are eternal. Today, tomorrow, and forever, the impossible belongs to God, and through Him, it belongs to you. Hear me now. God's work in your life is unstoppable. The impossible is not delayed. It is being perfected. Every closed door is being unlocked. Every dead end is being redirected. Every limitation is being expanded by His power. The circumstances that seem too heavy to bear are already lifted. The resources you thought were lacking are already multiplied. The blessings that you could not see are already on their way. God's timing is flawless. His provision is perfect, and His power knows no boundaries. You do not need to worry about how it will happen, when it will happen, or if it will happen. Your responsibility is to trust, to obey, to keep your eyes on God, and to hold fast to the promises He has made. Every moment spent in worry steals your peace, but every moment spent in faith positions you to receive the impossible. Let your heart rise, your spirit rejoice, and your soul rest in the certainty that God is working behind the scenes. The mountains will move, the storms will calm, the rivers will part. What once seemed unreachable will now be within your grasp. So live boldly, walk confidently, and declare with unwavering faith, God is doing the impossible for me. Let that declaration shape your day, guide your steps, and fuel your spirit. Let it silence fear, nullify doubt, and overcome every challenge. The impossible is not a limit. It is an invitation, a divine opportunity for God to show His greatness, His power, and His unwavering faithfulness. Trust Him completely, wait for Him patiently, and watch as the impossible becomes your reality.